Hey everyone, how are you? You can't answer me, that's absolutely fine. So I'm going to probably give a little bit of a backstory as to why we're doing this Q&A first and speak to you about a blog that I wrote a few days ago addressing return to exercise post-isolation. I was just thinking over the last couple of weeks about the stories we're hearing from Europe about their football clubs and soft tissue injury at the moment, and a few. Hi, Toby, Kim, Jackie, Tanya. Hi. Uh, and anyway, I was thinking about return to sport and everything going at the moment. And there's an increased rate of soft tissue injury or injury in general happening post-exercise or happening during exercise at the moment. So I thought it'd be a really, really nice thing to just give my view on kind of the do's and don'ts of returning to exercise at the moment. Because from what I've read, and every blogger, influencer, fitness guru out there, is the advice is really, really generalized. It's not anything that I would think gives you much scope or much direction as to where to go. So the things that you hear normally about return to exercise are things like start slow, which is actually a pretty valid thing to say, but it doesn't give you much as advice in itself. Keep it fun, keep it varied, make yourself goals, and be accountable. Now, all those things are great things in return to exercise generally, but return to exercise post time off is, while those things are still valid, there's a few more things that I think we should add and think about. So, in thinking about that, I went through what I usually have to think about in periods of time off training, because I've had a few of them. For those of you that know me, I had a pretty significant injury last year where I had to spend a few months off of exercise and then had to slowly return myself to it. So unfortunately or fortunately, given the circumstances now, I have a very acute awareness of what it takes to get back to exercise. So the things that I had to remember while I was going through my journey and that you guys might have to pay attention to, firstly, unfortunately, start slow. But what I mean by that is to keep your exercise intensity in check. So a lot of people, when they start thinking about starting slow, is it things like, do I go for a stroll instead of running when I start going back to exercise? Or if I'm going back to the gym, do I lift weights still, but do I do it slower? Or do I jog laps of the footy field and tell the coach I'm not ready to do sprints yet? A lot of the things that I just mentioned they all relate to the speed at which you're doing an exercise. Exercise intensity is in part how much output you're producing. Russ is giving me the thumbs up, which means we're doing well, we're doing okay. He's happy in the corner over there, if he wants to wave quickly.
Hi. We just can't see anything on our screen for some reason, so John's talking to a blank screen, just so you know. He's doing well.
I cannot see myself at all, so let's have fun with it. Hey, Tilly. Nice for you to be on as well. Hey, Lucas. All right, so moderating intensity. Big part about that is for the purposes of this talk is talking about how much effort you think you're putting into exercise. It's measured a little differently in sport and if you're measuring someone's output or how much work they're doing. But for us, and when I'm getting a person to return to exercise or returning to full exercise, I like talking to them about their rate of exertion or their perceived rate of exertion. And all that is a way to measure how hard a person thinks they're working, which is actually a really, really big thing to indicate, their potential for injury or how hard they think they're going to work. Oh, guys, you are too nice to me. Thank you for that. How hard you think you're going to work. So it's a 0 or 1 to 10 scale. All right, or 1 to 20 on the normal scale, 1 to 10 on the modified version. The modified version is just a little bit easier for us to use. 1 being, I could do this all day, it's not affecting me at all. 10 being, I think I'm about to pass out. All right, so when you're moderating your intensity with exercise at the moment, a really nice way to go about it is in the first couple of weeks or your first couple of sessions probably more specifically, to produce an effort or restrict your effort to a 6 or lower. What a 6 is on this scale is breathing heavily, can hold a short conversation, so you can answer yeses and nos and doing things like that. If you had a PT next to you and they go, how was your day? You can say, good, I did X. All right, but you don't have much capacity for much else. Okay, so you can see me. That is absolutely fantastic. You're not looking at a blank screen with a random voice. That's good. So the effort is comfortable, but by the end of the effort, it's becoming more challenging. All right, so that's the first thing, is moderating your effort. Also, the second thing I addressed in the blog is a moderate intensity is actually easier to maintain than high intensity. So when talking about a 6 out of 10 or lower, what we know is we're not inclined to do something that's difficult for us, right? So if exercise is hard or we're apprehensive about how difficult it's going to be, we're less likely to do it. We're also less likely to maintain it. So a really nice way to start back up that's also going to reduce your risk of injury is understanding that you probably should choose something that is going to be easy for you to get up for. So if it's going back to Pilates before going back to a full footy training, or doing a lightweight session at the gym before going to a CrossFit session or something like that, that's a really nice way to reintroduce yourself and feel comfortable about doing exercise before jumping back in. A big one that I address in the blog that is a huge thing for me is don't expect to start where you left off. You could be worse, if not actually a fair bit worse. So with me, when I took some time off, the biggest part to it was understanding that when I go back to the gym for the first time, I was going to suck. There's no better way to put it. I was going to be absolutely awful at what I did. So with that in mind, and actually walking in, I had very, very low expectations or no real expectations of what I was capable of. And it actually made the session easier. So when you do go back to the gym, just moderate your expectations of yourself. So a more tangible way to start return to exercise, and something I do a lot with sporting teams, which I'll talk about a little bit later, depending on the questions that I get, is I love moderating exercise or moderating intensity and return to sport by breaking down the actions of the sport or activity that I'm going to be doing. So what I mean by that, if a person's a runner, to be an effective runner, an efficient runner, they need good core control, hip stability, knee stability. Their running action needs to be, their body weight needs to be shifted slightly forward. There's certain things when it comes to step length, stride length, step rate when it comes to running. What I love doing is, instead of getting a person to go back to running, which is something they know and something they think they have an idea of what they can tolerate, which probably isn't actually what they can tolerate at the moment, given that they've had the time off, I will break it down into those components. So I will get a person to work on their knee strength, their hip strength. I will do a short video of their running stride and work on things that are smaller parts of the whole. For them to work on those things, they have to concentrate a little bit more. They can't work as intensely and they can't work as hard, which is a great way to kind of drop things back a little bit before you jump in. So I don't want to spend too much more time going through the blog, because I've already been talking for 5 minutes or so on this. The last one that I do want to talk about is large fluctuations in effort will lead to injury. So at an elite footy level, they look at how long a person's played for, how long they played in a game, how many minutes they spent training, and if there's a huge variation between all of those things, their likelihood of injury is significantly larger. Same way at the moment, where I've spent a hell of a lot of time on the couch, even though I panic bought an entire gym for my home. That's another story for another time. But I spent a hell of a lot of time on the couch. I know my training volume, so how much time I actually spent training was very, very low. So when I go back, I'm not expecting to do a 2-hour session. Half an hour to 45 minutes with a significant warm-up is going to be absolutely enough for me. The last piece of advice I gave was ask if you're not sure, which is exactly what we're doing at the moment. So, just a recap, I spoke about the blog that I wrote the other day that talked about moderating exercise intensity, making moderate exercise intensity be more habitual, thinking ahead and being realistic with your expectations, focusing on the smaller parts, and larger fluctuations will increase your likelihood of injury. Those are the things that I spoke about. If you guys have any questions now...